what's up? My name is Gray, and this is another episode of the Gray F podcast. And this is a show where I try to find people that are doing interesting things out there. And by chatting to them, we try to learn from them through listening to their stories, their insights, and things that they have to say. So today we have a different type of entrepreneur by the name of Jessica Bonin. She's the founder and CEO of Lady Bonin's Tea from Cape Town. She was speaking at Startup Grind Cape Town in May 2017, and that's where I first met her, and then we arranged this podcast. So by the time we recorded this, we actually recorded in Cape Town, Woodstock, where her factory shop is, and so I was recording from the factory shop, drinking really good tea. So it's no surprise that this episode is about tea. I'm sure you will be surprised by what you don't know about tea, because Jess is really passionate about tea, that she goes deep into it, and it will give you a little more perspective on how you look at tea, like it did to myself. And what's even more fascinating to me is her journey from how she started, from working in the film industry to buying a caravan and getting funded to this point where her business is growing. So it's basically a startup that is dealing with tea as a product. So they import tea from countries like Japan and other sides of the world, as well as exporting it now overseas, which I think it's really great and very different. You don't really see a lot of startups like this these days. And obviously Jess is deeply involved in this passion that she has, so she has a lot we can learn from through this process. So I hope you enjoy it and you find it helpful. We also talk about the challenges that she had to go through as a woman in the business world, which some of it is news, some of it isn't really news. It's quite common, and which is really sad. But I'm sure to most of you guys listening, we have talked about these subjects before with Maureen McGrath and on the episode, and other people that have been on the podcast. I'm sure you are aware of things like that we as entrepreneurs and people trying to do good with the world, we're trying to change. Anyway, I don't want to waste anybody's time by talking too much. I'll let you listen to the podcast with Jess. I also just want to point out that she was actually announced as the top female entrepreneur of the year in 2015 in the Agri-Processing category, awarded by the Western Cape government and Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. And she was actually the first woman, or the first person, to start a tea bar in Cape Town, just to give you some perspective before you jump into this. But anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Remember to subscribe on SoundCloud, iTunes, and we're on Facebook now, TGA Podcast. Thanks for your support if you have already, and you can also write me a review on iTunes or podcast app. Thanks for listening. At the Startup Grind, when we finished, a friend of mine was like, look, this lady just spoke for 30 minutes about tea. How is that possible at all? It was very interesting, like, that you can have so much knowledge about tea, because to me it was just like tea, you get a tea bag, twing in your mug, done. But then you just gave it the whole story about it. How did it get started? Just give, first of all, give like a little intro of what you are and what we're doing here.
Okay, cool. So basically what we do is we source teas from all over the world and locally, as well as ingredients like your herbs, spices and fruit. We blend it all using our own recipes, hand blend, so essentially it's artisanal tea. Then we package it and brand it under our own name. We've got all our different names for the different teas, and then we distribute it to different avenues. So we sort of do retail, like your Dis-Chem. We do restaurants who serve the tea. We export a little bit, and then we have our own shop avenues, one in Joburg and one in Cape Town.
Right. So you have this saying of saying you're trying to make the Starbucks of tea.
I think when I started was initially I was trying to be the Vita of tea in terms of trying to reinvent the way that people experience tea.
Yes.
The way that Vita reinvented the way people experienced coffee. Well, I guess it was actually Seattle, but at the time Vita became this whole sort of, experience. So that was my initial dream, I guess 6.5 years ago, and everything has helped me build it towards that. So, we were such a strong coffee culture in South Africa, and particularly in Cape Town. You can go down and every 5 shops there's a coffee shop, and you've got this kind of brew and that kind of roaster, and there's like a million options, but not everybody drinks coffee, and you also are limited to how much coffee you can have in a day.
Sure.
So tea becomes that alternative, but there's far more options with tea, and there's far more you can actually explore and enjoy. And for every ale or every mood or every emotion, there's a kind of tea that can suit that. And so I've taken a whole range of the teas that we sell, and I guess the ones that I know have been popular and ones that I resonate with, that I've had experiences with, and I've packaged them in a way that I think is very enjoyable and fun for a modern day market. So you can get your lattes and your chinos and your frappes all with tea base.
Right, so you got tea and you got a business now. Like, how did the two mix together? Seems like you have, from the talk at the startup brand, it seemed like you just had a passion for tea.
So I always had a passion for tea. It just wasn't what it is now. Since it's become my business, it's become my practice. So when I first started, I would say it was kind of by accident that I happened with tea, but of course, looking back, it seems like it was orchestrated. But I wanted to start my own business, and I wanted to get out of where I was really quickly, and the only solution I saw for that was to start my own business. I also wanted to create I wanted to create my own reality. I wanted to create my own world, and I wanted to find something I was passionate about. I didn't see myself working for someone else solving that, because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So in order to start my own business, I needed to utilize some kind of skill, because I didn't have some kind of like new invention or some kind of something. So I spent from the age of 14, waitressing and managing restaurants and whatever. So I thought, okay, well, I've got a little bit of experience there. Let me start a cafe. And then tea became an element of the cafe that was going to create the environment that I wanted. So I traveled to a lot of places, but what stuck out for me was India, where every street you walk down, every corner you turn, everyone you meet wants to share tea with you.
Right.
And tea becomes a way of connecting with people. And it doesn't matter where you're from or who you are, but tea is that common connecting tool.
Right.
So tea was going to be in my cafe, this thing that allowed all different kinds of people from all walks of life to be able to experience this place and share with each other. I wanted to bridge gaps. I wanted a place that wasn't exclusive to one group of people or one class of people. I wanted a place that everyone could enjoy. And then the more I started exploring the idea, the more it just became about the tea, until I dropped everything and it was just about the tea. And then from there, I obviously started developing it into elements of the business, from the caravan to the retail and the distribution. And I think it was only about 6 months into it that I sort of stopped and I realized this is the thing that I've been looking for my whole life, but I could never have told you it was going to be tea, even though tea was there forever. And then when I started exploring tea and obviously drinking tea every day, seeing the difference that it makes in my life, what I feel in my mind, what I feel in my body, how it's changed the way that I live, my health, everything. It's just happened. I naturally moved within the first 8 months. I just moved away from alcohol entirely. I just no longer felt like I wanted to have a drink at the end of the day because it wasn't serving me. I was feeling so much better drinking so much tea, and I wanted to understand, why does this plant do this? And then, of course, exploring, not just the health benefits of the tea and everything else, and you come into where it originates from and all the different ancient practices, from meditation and Zen practices to ceremonies. All of that has a purpose because it works to align with what the tea's physiological effects have.
Right.
And it's just a rabbit hole that I can't find an end of. I keep on discovering more and more about tea, and it keeps on intriguing me more and more because I'm finding these hidden secrets about tea, and of course tasting more teas than I can even believe existed.
Right. Interesting. So then, when you said you worked in the film industry before doing tea, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever feel once you was doing film that you were actually was doing what you really wanted to do all the time? at one point?
No, I pursued film because I wanted to make content-driven documentaries and TV series.
Yes.
I come from a philosophy and theatre background,
Right.
where I was very much about. I'm very fascinated by the human mind and the workings of the mind and the genealogy of humanity, and I want to understand why people behave the way that they behave, and I approach that a lot from a philosophical point of view, and theatre taught me very much about representing elements of reality around us, and how do you represent that in certain ways that communicate certain issues or finding solutions or whatever it is. So I went into film because I wanted to make work that did the same thing, but especially in Cape Town, you kind of get stuck into the commercial world, and every time I thought I was going to break out of it, I would get sucked back in, because it's this freelance thing of, you don't know when you're going to have the next job, so you just take whichever job you do, and you work yourself absolutely dead for 8 months, and then you have no work for 4 months, and you save all your money because you don't know when you're going to work next, and it's this horrible cycle. And so every time I stuck around as long as I did, because I thought I was going to always step into something else. I even moved back to Joburg for a little bit just to try pursue, because there's more television and more documentaries there, and I just couldn't align myself with anything, and I realized that I didn't want to continue to pursue it in that regard. It's not to say I won't ever get into TV. I have some things up my sleeve, but then it'll be on my terms and in my way, and not in a way that I have to beg for funding and do all of these things. I want to be able to have fun, and I want to be able to communicate, I guess, my experiences of the world.
Right. So what was just to say on that film stuff, it's like, it's interesting how you'd be like so excited about working in film, and then one point you just like, no, you don't want. I did a podcast with Mitch Bowler from Canada.
Oh yeah?
He started Pencil Kings. It's like an online thing where he trains artists and stuff. So he also broke out from film for the same reason of just like feeling like you're making popcorn of life, he says.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
so this is, I guess, more for feeling for you, where like it's impactful and all these kind of things. So what was the conversation like for you to convince yourself, like, this is the day that I'm actually done with film, I'm gonna go for it and start my own thing?
I got so bored with hearing myself complain. Yeah. It was just that, I think it was probably, anyone you meet that works in the commercial film industry complains about the same things. And I kind of started observing myself. I would step out of the situation, I would look at everybody around me complaining about the same things, and I would look at myself complaining about the same things. And never mind that, I'd wake up in the morning, and everybody has that thing, you don't want to go to work and you don't do whatever, but it was like painful in my body to want to get up and go. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but I know it was something along the lines of, I was having a conversation with someone and I hadn't seen them for a couple of months, and I found myself saying the exact same thing to them that I'd said a few months before, and it sort of clicked, and I was like, what? Why am I doing this? Like, I can change this. I don't have to do this. I was like, I'm tired of hearing myself complain. Like, why must I complain? Just go out and do something differently. Like, it was that thing of constantly having to sacrifice things for something I didn't actually believe in. Like, now that I run my own company, I work harder than I did, longer hours, all of that kind of stuff, but it's for something that has a purpose for me, something that I feel I'm contributing. When it came to the film industry, I was missing out on like really important events, people's weddings or birthdays or funerals, whatever it was. Everything is less important than that commercial that you're working on. And I was just like, at the time, it was between the age of like 24 and 27, or 23 and 27. I was just like, these are like the prime years of my life, and I'm sacrificing all these awesome things for something I don't care about. Right. So why? Because you don't know how. What am I going to do this for the rest of my life? And then at like 60, when I retire, I'm like, great, look at all that time I spent doing something I hate. For what? Like, you could die tomorrow. Don't you want to die at least knowing you're doing something? That things are impermanent. You don't know how long they're going to last. So you got to enjoy at least part of it.
So it's like complex to look at how it is now. You have stores and you're exporting, importing, but like, I'm still fascinated to know exactly what happened in between, like the day you said I'm going to start, and how was the actual start, and what were you thinking? Like, what was your vision? Like, what level is this going to reach? Did you thought of just having a truck and a small store somewhere?
Yeah, I think when it started, it was essentially what I wanted was freedom. So I wanted something that would not only be a platform for me to express myself, but that would just allow me to have the life that I wanted. And initially the dream was very small. The idea was very small. I just wanted this shop, where I could interact with people and, have this very cool thing and maybe employ someone else to be there, and I could, have a bit of freedom to move around, or, I never dreamed of an empire. That sort of started coming the more I reached certain goals that I'd set, the more other things became possible. And then your vision just begins to expand. When I decided on the caravan, it feels like it was actually this weird whirlpool that happened where I sort of tricked myself into getting it. It was kind of like I told people, they were very excited about it. Some people thought I was crazy, and then became this thing of like, okay, well now I've committed because I've told people about it. People have expectations, so I used that as a gauge for myself. I don't even know how I did it. It must have been a subconscious process, but now I'd set myself this challenge, and so I was going to do it. And I remember the moment of sitting there like waiting to press send for the transfer of the money to buy the caravan. And I was like, okay, this is it. There go some of my savings into this thing. Once I do this, like, I have to do it, And then, of course, it arrived on my doorstep, and I was like, here's this caravan. I now need to gut and paint and decorate and all of these things. And it was just one moment to the next that I somehow committed to just that one little thing that meant I had to now fill in the gaps between where I was and where I was going. And I think once I did the caravan and that started working and people started picking it up, it was like, okay, well, I didn't really think that was possible, and check it out, it's actually working. Okay, so what else can I do? On top of it actually being a survival thing, because at the end of the day I wasn't making enough money to step away from the film industry by running the caravan. So it was one, practical, and two, challenging and exciting to see what's the next level. And I thought within the first year, okay, maybe I can have that shop in like 3, 4, 5 years. And then that opportunity came a lot sooner than I had anticipated. And then really it's just, the ideas just expand. So it's almost exponential. So like 1 turns into 3, turns into 6 and whatever else. So it just became bigger. And now, of course, I have to rein myself in with the ideas.
Yeah. So why didn't you...
Amy reins me in with the ideas.
If I decide like to start a restaurant or like a tea or a coffee shop, the first thing I would do is like rent some space and start a coffee shop. But why did you decide to go with the caravan?
Because I didn't have the money or the experience.
Right.
So one, I was doing something that was completely brand new, which was tea. All people, you still only really know tea bags. So 6.5 years ago, I was seeing what I'm doing right now, which was takeaway tea and all this awesome tea, which people couldn't even conceptualize the fact that they were spending, I think at the time I was selling like 15 Rand for a cup of takeaway tea. They paid 25 Rand for coffee, but they couldn't understand, they used to putting a tea bag in a polystyrene cup for 5 Rand. So even that change of perception, was such a big leap. So I guess I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't have just gone and, I still needed to learn from the market. And secondly, in order to run a restaurant, you've got overheads. You've got staff, you've got electricity, you've got water, you've got rent, all of these things that require working capital, none of which I had. I had 50,000 Rand, and I had to start a business with 50,000 Rand.
And you had like any income stream by then?
No, I was still working part-time in the film industry. Yeah, so I used that 50,000 Rand of my tax, my tax refund. It was either that or I was going to go be a cowgirl in America. That was my plan. I was like, okay, let me be responsible and start a business.
Right. Then how long did it take to actually say, okay, now I'm quitting completely the film stuff and just be on this full time?
I think it was about 6 months. Yeah. So I managed to save up enough, and I had some other savings somewhere else to subsidize my salary. And by salary, I mean like pennies.
Yeah.
Obviously, you live on the edge of everything, that luxury, because it's nice money in film, you know.
There is.
So I went from like enjoying life to having absolutely nothing, basically minimal, which was very stressful. I mean, it caused a lot of anxiety for me to get my head around that, and not knowing, if you're actually going to be able to pay yourself anything that month. And there's many months still now. Sometimes I'm the one that gets paid last.
Absolutely.
So sometimes I don't get a salary, and that's fine. You just adapt and you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So it was about 6 months before I could actually step away and take it on full time, because then of course you can't actually make anything work if you can't plug your full energy into it. So, and that's a huge leap of faith, because that's when I started with the like waking up in the middle of the night, what am I doing kind of thing, this is insane. And when I landed that really big client, I think it was probably about 10 months after I officially started the business, and I landed that big client, and they, there was this massive lump sum of money in my account, and I was just like, oh my God, look, I just did that. And I could split that money over a year, give myself a bit of a salary, and also look at how I could use that money to grow other aspects of the business. So I guess that way is less risk. I mean, in this day and age, we've got this idea that, we're all, it's like the Silicon Valley disease that I like to call it. We're all overnight millionaires, and everything must happen instantly because we live in an instant gratification world. It doesn't work like that. Anything that lasts takes time to build, and I've had to learn that the hard way by looking at it and going. People look and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, what you've achieved in 6 years is like monumental." For me, it's a fifth of what I want to achieve. I'm working at less of a speed than I want to be working at, but it gives me the opportunity. The foundations that we're building, the things that I've had to learn in 6 years, the fact that we're running our own factory, we're doing ISO 22000 health safety things, we've got organic certification. It's taken me 6 years just to fine tune my supplier base, 6 years just to decide, to finalize who my suppliers are. All of these things, to perfect my packaging, to, all of those the recipes, whatever it is, all of that stuff takes so much time. I wouldn't have been able to open the tea bar 6 years ago. It would have absolutely flopped and failed. But now I have an idea, and I'm still learning with it. I'm still growing because it's still brand new, but at least I have experience behind me to go, so, building the business with the money that it's making, and learning as I'm going, and obviously trying different areas and seeing that fails, and because you're not committing huge amounts of money to it, because you don't have huge amounts of money, it allows you to explore different little things along the way so that you can build this thing that hopefully will, long outlast you. I'd like to create a legacy that many people can enjoy and benefit from, not just for my own thing. I'd like it to last beyond. Maybe we have enough impact that we change how farming happens, how it's a different kind of food security, so there's lots that's intertwined along the way, and I've been doing it all ethically from the beginning, which makes it even harder. I was one of the first people to buy these biodegradable cups, or these degradable cups. People are still using this polystyrene or whatever it was. One of the first customers of the company that opened up here. And every step along the way that makes it harder, but you learn this by being able to build the business slowly.
Right. So you have never been like a real business person before? You were just like, you like tea and you just built a business off that? Did you went to like business school or something like that?
No, I did a little part-time, like 6-month diploma certificate thing, which just gave me the basics. I studied, one of my subjects at school was business. I always had little entrepreneurial tendencies, more in the sense of having ideas and having the will and the drive to run with ideas, and then my ideas growing bigger, and my mind works in this constant way to understand things and create puzzles. But in terms of understanding the finances and cash flow, and what is marketing on a grand scale, and the social media, and building client relationships and all of that, I've had to build on what I've learned from waitressing days or my client interactions in the film industry. Everything's actually served me in one way or another. Right. But Amy and I were actually just saying earlier, she has a business degree, and I know there's so many people who are studying, MBAs, and I have a friend who's studying an MBA in London who's, I can't even explain to you how much money that he's paying for this, but at the end of the day, how many businesses have you actually run? Because you can learn all the theory, but until you actually sit there and you do it, you know nothing. It's like it's someone who studied to be a surgeon. Until you've actually cut into a heart, you have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
And definitely the background helps, but at the same time, I actually feel kind of like it's benefited me not having a degree, because it hasn't conformed or conditioned my thinking. Which means, because at the end of the day, what I hated the most about the film industry was essentially what it represented of society, which was this, let's manipulate people into buying things that they don't need, which ends up putting them into positions that, it's that immoral thing of capitalism. Absolutely. I didn't like the capitalist model. Doesn't mean that we can't do things where there can be profit and all of this kind of stuff. And half of my business has been I want to discover that, and I want to actually recreate business or a business model that can work in a way that can benefit people, and that the business doesn't ride on the back of like other people's suffering.
Yes.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we work with small scale farms. That's why we work to train our employees. Whatever it is, we're aligning our value system with our profits, essentially. But I've had to do that by, firstly, learning what it is that I'm dealing with, because at the end of the day, I'm working in a world that is capitalist based, and that, you know, and if you don't adapt, you die.
You die, yeah.
So I've had to figure out how to do that. That's been harder, but you know, you kind of figure out the ways, and I go, okay, cool, I see how that works. I don't want to do it that way. I don't like it that way. So how can I do it differently?
Yes.
You know, so and that makes it harder, because you're essentially stepping on more and more stones, because you're essentially recreating something.
Yeah.
Just like with tea, I'm recreating the way people experience
Right.
tea. I'm recreating the way that people run businesses. And I'm a woman, so of course there's all of those challenges that it comes with, which I don't focus on, but it is. It's you know, I'm working in agriculture. People don't take me seriously. It's you know, they don't trust that you're going to be that good gap between the farmer and bringing it to market, whatever it is. And there's like hardly any woman working in agriculture, and it's really important for women to work in agriculture. So, yeah.
Wow. So most of your stuff, just to speak on that side of things, are women, yeah? Like most.
Yeah.
Right.
We have one gentleman, because we have to balance it out. And also then I can't like go and discriminate against men.
Yeah, sure. But like, what is it's like everywhere, you know, they balance to in the business, like to try to balance men and women. But like, what's one of the most memorable moments where you felt like you've been discriminated or not taken seriously?
I was looking for rooibos suppliers, and I mean the rooibos industry is a whole other podcast we could do if you had the inclination for my pitchforks. And I was trying to source suppliers, and I was trying desperately to find small scale, you know, farms, because also this whole fair trade thing, and you know, it's just not as ethical as you think it is in this industry. It's really bad actually, and I just kept on coming across like, you know, old white men who are running these farms, and they're very like secretive and protective of stuff and whatever it was. And anyway, so I phoned this guy, and I was sort of chatting to him, and he was very sort of standoffish, and when he found out that I was this woman running this business, and particularly an agri-processing business, I think he literally said to me, "Oh, shame, sweetheart, let me show you how it's done." And I was like, okay, you know, it was so condescending.
Yes.
And it was, you know, I think I actually got one of my male friends to go and phone him afterwards. I wanted to see that, like, I wanted to actually experiment and see what the difference was between how he deals with that person and how he dealt with me. And that my friend within like 10 minutes managed to actually get what essentially I was trying to get, but he would not impart that information on me, and he wouldn't open those doors to me. Yeah. It's like he was threatened. You know, there is that thing of like, I mean, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I mean, it happens a lot. I find I have to put in a lot more effort when it comes to creating business partnerships if it is with men, because men, and I mean, of course, you can never generalize. Yeah. In my experience, I found that the men that I've dealt with generally have less faith in a woman's ability to actually run a business and to maintain things. Yeah. And, you know, at the same time, like, if you look at how men physically are built and how they run, so I've tried this consistent thing on, you know, this like 8 to 5, we must be consistent energy and focus to have the same output every single day, which is what, you know, I guess the man-created world of business is how it runs, and it's capitalism, that's how it works. I can't do that. I went into adrenal fatigue when I tried that way. My physical body as a woman doesn't process adrenaline the same way a man's body processes adrenaline. Right. So I had to look and go, okay, cool, well, that's not working for my body. It's causing me stress. It's making me sick. So how can I do things differently? Because I'm not going to run that way. But then I found my own way. Like, as women, we're a lot more in tune to adaptation. We flow. Our very systems are built to have monthly flow cycles, you know. So that's how we run on a daily basis, and we're not separate from the environment. So, you know, in spring you are in one way, in winter you're in another, because that's how your constitution is. So it's the same with me on a daily basis. So I can see some days I can put in 100%, other days 20%, but because those 4 days I put in 100%, it actually makes up for those other 2 days I didn't put 40%, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I've seen that the way that men run things doesn't necessarily work for me, although I still have to find the balance, and I still have to go, okay, well, if I'm completely soft and sweet the whole time, people are going to walk over me. So I have to have an element of sternness.
Yes.
Film industry taught me to be an arsehole.
Yeah.
It was screen first and ask later.
Yes.
So I actually had to tame that down, but then I went too much on the other side and I had to find the middle way.
Right. That's interesting what you said. Like, I think it becomes more of a problem. It puts women in a disadvantage when they try to do it exactly as men when we're actually different physically.
Yeah.
I think what you said, like you found your own way, of how you can operate and still be effective as much.
Absolutely.
I think that's, if most women could adapt that kind of approach, would be interesting.
I think that's actually benefited me. Where people are looking, oh no, that's a weakness as a woman or whatever it is. For me, these are, being a woman, it's been strengths for me because I've been able to firstly adapt. Secondly, women are far more community based in the sense that we, it's not about this cutthroat, like let me just annihilate everyone in my way because I'm competing. It's like we work together. Yeah. And we can see half the struggles in the world are because people are individualistically driven. Yeah. It's about you and your own, never mind your neighbor. And that's what's destroying us. That's why we're destroying the planet, because it's all about, me. That's why I love the Asian culture so much, because it's very much about, community, and even in the tea practice. But as when I work with women and I see other business women, they're not competing with me. We're not. There's not a competition. There's like a nurturing aspect where it's going, okay, well, actually, I've stepped on these 20 stones. Let me help you out here, so you don't have to step on the same stones. As opposed to going, well, I'm going to use that to sink you. Yeah. That's not to say that people aren't like that, but I find the mind of a woman is a lot different, and that's helped me grow my business, actually secure things more solidly because of that. And it's an ethics space as well that kind of helps. But you have to work with what your strengths are. Yeah. Because it isn't. It's not to say, because I know that fatigue and stress and all of that it's an epidemic that we're experiencing, and I see it because people come to me to solve it with my tea. Yeah. It's what my tea solves, is half of this anxiety that we're living in with modern day society. It doesn't work. Yeah. It does not work. It's not how our bodies are built. We're not supposed to be in this consistent stress. And then of course coffee comes along and tweaks your adrenals even more. So everybody's just killing themselves or having heart attacks at 45 because they're so stressed or whatever it is. And I don't want that. But I had to experience it in order to know that that's not working. That's not working. It doesn't mean I don't hustle. It doesn't mean I don't, but I also don't want to be like a frothing overnight millionaire that's we can hustle, let's do it, So I'm gonna drink some tea.
Then how would you describe your dream team? If you build your company right now, what's your culture like? With all your background and your moral behaviors and the things that you have observed?
I think very much what it is now, other than some of the systems we're trying to fine tune. Yeah. No, I really love, I don't see myself, for sure I'm spearheading the business because I've got the vision and I understand where we're going and I'm leading in that regard. But people that work with me are my family, and they're working with me. This is their business too. Yeah. I want the people that come to work with me to be invested in the business, because this is something that they are helping me build. In the beginning, I struggled a lot with letting go. So when people came on board, it was this fear of if I don't control how that person is doing that thing, then it'll all bomb out. Yes. Of course, you have to guide people, especially because it's tea. You have to teach them. So it's not just go and make the pot of tea. Of course, if I don't give them guidelines, they're not going to know how to make the tea. Yeah. So it's finding that balance between guiding someone and listening. And that's essentially the environment that I've got here, where we're co-creating something. Right. And that co-creating environment is something that I thrive on, and I think that is really sustainable, and I think that is beautiful because it's also giving other people a platform to create themselves within the nature of the business. Right. So we want to evaluate, and we go, okay, cool. Well, what about aspect of your business that of this business and your job that you're doing? Are you enjoying? Are you not enjoying? Where can your goals align with the goals of the company? Because we're going in this way, so can we plug you in here? Would you like to plug in that way? Okay. Right. Then now we put into these things within the scaling process that we need someone to replace you in order for you to go there, or whatever it is, so that essentially, it's not, I want to be more, I would like to be at an opportunity where I can more instantly have that as an offering, because now we've got a 6-month or a 12-month strategy, and I can go, okay, within 6 months to 12 months, we can move you there, because at the moment we're still having, I need you to do those 5 jobs, because I'm doing, 5 jobs, and I want you to be able to just do one job so that I can bring 4 other people on to do those other jobs, whatever it is. So I would like to be at that place, where we've scaled enough that it can allow a more fluid and quicker moving thing within that, if that makes any sense. Does that answer your
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So then how did you find funding to scale, and did you choose to give equity or salary to your employees, and why?
So I did a business incubator course with, I was selected to do a business incubator course with a company called Impact Amplifier.
Right.
And
just try to look to the mic as much as you can.
Okay. I did a course with a company called Impact Amplifier, and essentially what they do is impact business, which is very much what I was telling you about, aligning profits with impact. So they, in the 5-month process, helped me sort of fine-tune my business. One of the sponsors was a company called Hivos, Food and Lifestyle, and at the end of it, we all sort of did like a Dragon's Den type pitch, because essentially the idea of the incubator was to get you investment ready so that you could scale. So it meant that they went through, we fine-combed the business to see where it had its problems in order to make it investment ready, because anyone can take investment, but if you don't know what you're doing with that money and you don't have everything set up, then of course it's doomed to sort of fail. So they helped us ready for that, and anyway, after our pitches, they had said that they would select one company and they would give a interest-free loan as a way to just assist the company. So it means you could pay it back and without any interest.
Nice.
And they chose my company, but I had a particular ask, so this wasn't the full ask, but they sort of approached me and they said, okay, well, we would actually like to come on board as your investors because they're particularly interested in food security or food products, especially organic ones and ones that work with farms, and they want to help get really good healthy products available to people, whether it's in the form of tea or whatever it is. And our value systems were aligned and our vision was aligned. So they said, well, we would like to make it a convertible loan, which essentially means that we have like a trial period. So they would drop in the first amount of money. We would see that we have a synergy and that I benefit from them, and they can see that the business, that I'm doing something positive with the money, and then we can convert the loan into equity. So we decided on an equity portion based on the value of the business.
Before you go ahead, sorry, how did you feel about that? Just being you were doing your own thing and somebody's coming now with like equity and putting money in.
It was really scary. It was scary to let go of the idea of letting go of portions of the business. But of course you weigh it up and you go, okay, cool, I can be a big fish in a small pond, or I can be a little fish in a big pond, in that sense of going, okay, cool, well, this money is going to allow me to grow the business, which is going to bring in more income, which is going to essentially make my portion bigger and benefit my employees and give allow me to give them portions or whatever it is. It's going to help me achieve my dreams. So I understood that I needed money for that. I didn't necessarily want equity means that there's not that pressure to pay back the loan, and because I'm also still learning as I go along, and I've had to have a lot of mentorship from my investors, which is why I chose them, because I had 3 offers. And they were the ones that I aligned with the most, because they got what I was trying to do. And they will tell you that they invested in me, not the business.
Right. That's a very valid point to point out, actually.
So they invested in me, not the business, because they believe in me as an entrepreneur. Even though one of my investment managers will tell you that 6 months ago I was a 2 out of 10 and now I'm 5 out of 10 entrepreneur.
That's a lot of growth.
Well, I mean, it was very small. I thought I was at least a 5 out of 10, but anyway.
Then
6 months, I mean, it's been very difficult, because it means that you have to look at, it's been amazing having them on board, and we've done now 3 rounds of funding, so we've split it up in different ways to obviously make it more viable and work, and check that we're going down the right path and allow us to assess and all of that stuff. And we just did the first conversion of the first loan, which means that I've now officially and legally given over 25% of my company. Which is a big thing, but I also understand where we're going, and it means that I'm not carrying this thing by myself anymore. Which was very stressful and also lonely, because as much as I can share things with people, I mean, having Amy, for example, on board has been amazing, because she's like my right-hand lady, like she's carrying this thing with me, and I can discuss things with her, and we can strategize together. But now I've got these other people who have like real experience, and not just experience in business, but in agriculture and in Africa and in all the things that they can help me. And they don't give me the answers, because they also are still learning the business and they don't know the territory and all of that kind of stuff, but they ask me the right questions to get me to find those solutions. So over Christmas and New Year, I was sitting there going through intense financial analysis, you know, so that I could do financial projections for the last little while. And the questions that my investment manager asked me, that he genuinely wanted to know, helped me understand my business so much more. Right. So that I now, for the first time in 6 years, I'm moving forward with confidence, where I don't feel like I'm making it up. You know, because there was so many times that I was like, someone's going to bust me and realize I have no idea what I'm doing. You know, because it's like that. You just, all of a sudden, this thing, it's a whirlwind, and all of a sudden this business is growing, and all of a sudden you're there, and everything is chaos because you've brought on this thing and that thing and that thing. You haven't had time to actually sort out the mess, you know, so your clothes are piling up or whatever it is chaos, and you don't really know how you're running a business. You're kind of winging it as you're going along, and that thing kind of worked, and you're like, okay, cool. And then you try to throw in a strategy, and well, you know, you can throw a strategy, but the schedule of it happens in its own way. Even if you want to plan it minute by minute and day by day, doesn't happen that way. You know, so like, for example, we wanted to launch this stuff with just again like a year ago. We've only just done it because we had delays with packaging. We had delays with this, and
frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but this is what happens. You have to learn to flow with the flux. That's where I guess I've had to learn to adapt, because I've also realized that so many times when I hit a brick wall, it's because I'm supposed to change direction. And when I change direction without fighting it, so much more opens up. But anyway, having investors on board that I can also just share my frustrations, or if I'm stuck and I can't figure something else, something out, I can go like, I don't understand what I'm doing here. And you know, I'm my biggest critic. So half the time I'm sitting there beating myself up for, you know, the successes are like mild and your failures are massive. And when I say failures, I mean like you didn't achieve that thing, and or you lost that client, or that sale never went through, or whatever it is. And you know, I'll sit there and I'll like freaking beat myself for it for ages, and I'll go into this like, I don't know if you've seen that is that hilarious like graph of like the life of an entrepreneur, which is like, you know, up, you're like elated, and then you drop to like depression, and it's because it really is that, you know. But I can still, you know, the other day something happened, and we have our weekly meetings, and I was speaking to my manager, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing happened, and it's really frustrating. And he was like, no, it's good that you see that, you know, and it's really good that you're feeling that way. And he was like, but it's okay. You know, and someone actually gave me permission to go, oh, that's okay to make that mistake. You know, it's not going to sink the whole business, or, you know, because you constantly feel, it's like, try to compare this, a lot of my friends have kids, and I don't have kids by choice. And for me, I'm like, this is my child. I've birthed this child. I've raised this child. I've put in the hours for this child. And I'm constantly stressed about this child. And I constantly think I'm going to kill it. You know, so I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't do that thing, or send that email, or I messed up that, and it's now going to die. You know, because whatever. So it helps to have someone else's eyes there. And also so that, you know, they can help me reach my full potential, essentially. Maybe they see things I don't see. Because that's also good. You know, you don't always know it. Like, I used to fight for my vision the whole time. And sometimes I have to step back and go, okay, I'm actually going to not do that, because I understand that while that's an awesome idea, I've got like 5 other things that I'm busy focusing on. So to have someone like rein me in a little bit with like logical, and also because I'm accountable to them. They're my partners now. You know, so
So I guess having your own little world that you built gives you like the freedom to experiment and fail if you have to. Than in film where there's no mistakes.
There's nothing to do. There's no mistakes, and you just stuck behind a desk. I mean, I'm still kind of stuck behind a desk, but it's my desk.
You know, so actually you know what you're fighting for.
Exactly. And like I say, I mean, building it with people, you know, that share the vision, because it's not just about running a business for me. You know, it's about what, you know, how can I be the microcosm of the macrocosm in the world that I see? Like, I want to change the world in my own way, and the only way I can do that is by changing myself, right? And that means that my business is that platform that I can also do that with. And you know, when you find people that have that same vision, it's very rewarding to work with people to create this thing, you know, to build this thing, to like triumph and fight through all of the things, because you have this value and this purpose for what you're doing and why you're doing it. And sharing that is really, I think, it's super rewarding.
So tea is also linked to mindfulness and spirituality.
Absolutely.
Is that something you do or you have been doing, or?
Yeah, that's definitely in my personal. That's why I will say that tea isn't just my business; it's my practice. So it's my daily practice, like a kind of a kung fu, a martial art or a meditation or something, and it's got so many different aspects of it. And at the end of the day, I'm purveying this product. I'm in service to the tea to get it out to the people. And so I have to understand what it is that I'm working with, and I also have to understand the mind of the general person that I'm purveying this tea to, so that I can understand what do they need, not just like, what are the trends, because trends are often reflective of a need that people have. So, why are so many people going for matcha? Because, well, coffee is not serving them in the way that people need it to serve them. So matcha is this other thing that's serving them. But if you go down into the history of matcha, you see that it was brought in by Zen Buddhists who came from China over 5,000 years ago, and they incorporated it into meditation ceremonies because it assisted them in their practice to essentially achieve enlightenment. That was then incorporated into the samurais' practice of wabi, which is part of how they built the foundation of Japanese culture. So the way that the Japanese are is as a result of tea.
Right.
And the meditation and everything else that is there on top, because it is directly linked to their Zen practice or Buddhism. And you go to China and you find similar things. And of course, everything, the ancient, we're losing that ancient wisdom that we need so much. You can look in any culture in any country, we're losing that. But teas are really, it's been around for over 5,000 years. So you have to ask, why has this thing been around for 5,000 years? And, for me, this is where I was saying, I started just realizing that there was more to tea than just that. Someone who drinks tea on a daily basis, but I don't just drink it mindlessly. When I sit down and I start exploring and I do my little ceremonies, or I sit with it, even just 5 minutes, and I sit with it and I observe what is going on in my body and what is going on in my mind. The subtle things that you feel that become not so subtle and are obvious, further down the line, there's more and more. I mean, I've had tastings in Japan with this couple that I met. They couldn't speak English, I couldn't speak Japanese, but we had the common language of tea, and I sat for 4 hours drinking these teas that they've traveled the world to find. And at the end of it, he sort of brought me this one tea that I could smell before he even told me what it was. I knew what it was because I recognized it. And when I tasted it, it was like I could feel every single cell in my body come alive. It gave me goosebumps. I started tearing. I was like instantly high, but it was high of like in a clarity kind of way. Sort of like I was explaining the whole like Lucy principle or whatever it was. And I couldn't believe that a substance, that tea could make me feel like this. It was euphoric and magnificent, and at the same time it was emotional, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And if you go and you look into the process of tea and the physiology of tea and the 2,000 chemicals it's got and the way that the water temperature is chosen perfectly and the equipment is chosen perfectly, that's all to pair the best with that particular tea to harness its most amazing potential. And anyway, this particular tea turned out that it was one master in this particular area region that produces this particular kind of tea, and he's the only one left in the world that carries the ancient tradition of how it's prepared. And he doesn't even sell this tea. He gifts this tea to people that are like worthy. So I managed to taste this tea through these tea masters. That is one of the rarest teas in the world, and I understood why, because it wasn't just, this is an exceptional flavor note. This is like a transcendental experience I was having in my body, from this thing, because it is a physiological effect that's going on. But when you drink it more and more, you obviously experience it more and more. It's like people who run. They get high off this thing, or they start experiencing things in the mountains because their body is now alive. Their mind is open. You're not poisoning yourself with like MSGs and sugars and all that crap that like is killing your body. Because you're constantly in a state of trying to like save yourself from a hangover. So it's a whole other thing. I mean, that's why we have the ceremony room, because I want people who want to explore the tea a little bit deeper to come and see what the little aspects of it. It doesn't have to be, nobody has to go into it the way that I've gone into it. It fascinates me, and it works in with my philosophies and my inquiries into understanding the nature of the mind and the world. So that's my own personal thing. So it is. I mean, it's practiced all over the world. You can go anywhere. Even in India, they have their own tea ceremony. You go to Peru, in Argentina. Everyone has a different way with tea.
So in South Africa, here, I mean, maybe with the rest of the world as well, the tea story is just getting your mug, put a tea bag in, water with miracle nut, done.
Yeah.
But you referred to most of that tea as dust.
Yes.
Explain that.
It's actually in the industry called dust. So
Right.
it's not just dust. It's well, they call it Fannings. But essentially, if you look at when they go and they pick the tea, I don't know if some people have heard of the concept of what's a saying, 2 leaves in a bud, or like 2 tips in a bud. I think there might actually be a brand that's out there called 2 tips in a bud or something. But essentially, the best part of the tea bush is considered the first 2 leaves with a very small bud that pop out of the bush in spring. So that's called the first harvest. So that's supposed to have the sweetest, because it's now all the energy that's been stored in the tea bush over winter now comes out in a single shoot. So the first flush is those first tea leaves. And they'll do a couple of flushes. So then the second round that comes up, they'll pick that up. And then, of course, it goes and it gets dried. Green teas get dried in a certain way, and black teas get dried in a certain way. And then it gets withered, and it gets, processed and rolled and whatever else. It just kind of happens in this way. And then by the time you've dried it in the heat rooms, you've got big leaves, you've got medium leaves, you've got little broken off bits.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
And essentially, the bigger the tea leaf, and it's graded, so it's separated into different grades. The bigger the tea leaf, the better the grade.
Yeah.
Those bits that they put in the tea bag is literally what is left over.
Right.
It's literally the broken bits or dust that is left on the floor that they sweep up and they put into tea bags. So the whole tea leaf is a chemistry. It's got 2,000 chemicals in it, and that chemistry has an interaction with the water, and that's essentially what we interpret as flavor.
Yes.
So as soon as you break that full leaf up, it loses its full capacity or ability to have the chemical reaction or its chemical potential, because it's not now in a solid form.
Right.
So that translates as it going stale.
Yeah.
The flavor is weaker. And then, of course, but of course, this is the cheapest way to do it. So then what people do is they go and they throw in all sorts of flavorants and additives and salts and everything to compensate for that lack of flavor.
Right.
You just go and open your, I can't mention brands because I don't want to get sued. Go open your, common, English breakfast tea bag and you'll see what's in there. There's not just tea leaves in there. There's other little bits of salt or, white bits or...
Right.
There's stuff in there that shouldn't be there. And tea is very simple. For us, we don't use flavorants and additives in our tea because the tea plant itself is very absorbent. So I will literally take dried apples and dried cinnamon, and I will put it in my tea, and it will create a cascade of flavor.
Right.
Because I don't want to annihilate people with, oh no, we want strawberries, strawberry in your face, like some kind of perfume or something.
Right.
But that's what they do in the tea bags and all of that kind of stuff. So then you have to ask, are you really getting the benefit of the tea?
Right.
For sure there's something, but it's not. That's why people, often have bad experiences with tea. Green tea, they find it bitter.
Yeah.
Well, yes, of course it's bitter.
Yeah.
You're drinking this broken dust out of a bag, and the bag itself is made of plastic. And what happens when you heat plastic is carcinogenic.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to affect the flavor, or it might be unbleached, whatever. So the full tea leaf it's like instant coffee versus roasted beans.
So your tea is you consider all those little things, like the packaging, just to keep the flavor.
Absolutely, every single thing that we have has been considered in order to benefit the tea.
Right.
The way that it's stored in our factory, how we handle the tea, how we blend it, the kind of equipment we use to blend it, how we store certain ingredients, how we put it together. And it took me 2 years to finalize this packaging because I wasn't happy. It's still not finalized as I want, because of course I want the most environmentally friendly option, but of course in South Africa we don't have those options here.
Yeah.
So I've had to adapt, and we've got recycled paper that is recyclable, and eco-friendly ink, and we've got bags that are, because most of those silver foil bags you find, they're actually made of plastic, which comes from oil. So it's actually all the drilling, everything.
Right.
So we take into all the consideration, because that also impacts on the flavor of the tea.
Yes.
So now I've just, for the first time, because we've been loose leaf the whole time, we've just found, in Japan of course, because they're super efficient, I found some biodegradable tea bag materials. It's plant-based, so it's actually made of plant. The way that they do it has a very low impact in terms of the carbon emissions, and it doesn't affect the flavor of the tea, and I can do it in these pyramid shapes, which allows the tea to still move around, because of course some people don't want to incorporate the loose leaf tea, even though it's really not harder than putting a tea bag in a cup. But it means now I can have some because I've stayed away from the tea bags, because for me that affects the flavor negatively, and also the process should be a little more mindful. But now I've got something that can at least adapt without compromising on the quality of the tea,
right,
or the effect to the environment.
So for somebody who, I mean, the coffee culture is really huge out there.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's like so many flavor types of tea that you can try, more than coffee. Like how many types of tea are there, or like what
it's infinite.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
the ones that you provide, you supply?
We have about at the moment we have about 44.
44. So
44 different
if
kinds.
one go to your restaurants, how many to your coffee
Into my
tea
shop,
shop?
yeah, you'd find. I think in the shop is 36. We've got another few that we do for other avenues.
Right.
That's just the retail capacity. Then on our menu, we've probably got about 30 different options, and then in our ceremony room, we've got probably about 30 different options. So, yeah. So our takeaway teas uses our tea, but adapts it differently.
So my question now was, for somebody who is coming from coffee, they want to quit coffee because the whole negative aspect of it. They want to switch into tea now.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendations as a starting point?
It depends on how addicted they are, because first we have to realize that you're actually dealing with an addiction.
Yes.
So they show that they show that chemically in the brain, the process that happens with coffee withdrawal is exactly what happens with heroin or crack.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've been a coffee person, extremely.
So that feeling that you get, like you wake up in the morning and you're all groggy and you can't wait to get that first cup of coffee, and everybody thinks that first cup of coffee is, oh no, it's waking me up, it's getting the energy. Actually, that feeling that you're having is the relief from the withdrawal symptoms.
Right.
That feeling of euphoria is the relief from withdrawal symptoms. So it's not actually because the coffee is, it gives you that energy boost, but you end up feeling worse. And it's just a consistent feeling of getting worse and worse, especially because people abuse coffee.
Yeah.
Like, I have the odd cup of coffee, totally fine. I went through an experiment now where I decided to drink a lot of it just to dock in with like the general populace. It was horrible. It felt terrible. I couldn't sleep at night. It was worse and worse, and you just get used to feeling horrible. And then when I come off it and I get back onto the tea, I'm like, this is normal.
Yeah.
So we tend to analyze people according to like their level of addiction and suggest it in a way that can make it easy, because it's actually difficult for people to come off the coffee because they actually get the shakes or they get whatever it is. And also, what is the purpose of the, what do they want the tea for? Are they looking because they're stressed? Do they need something that gives them energy? They want it for exercise. So we try pair the two. So it'll go, okay, cool. Well, matcha is generally the one that I suggest the most to people, because it makes coffee look like apple juice in a way that you don't have the come down with side effects. There's no side effects to it like that, It is quite an expensive product, but it's totally worth it. 1 tube lasts you a month. But it is really an incredible one. And for those who are like real hardcore coffee addicts, I give them that. Most of the time they don't believe me, and then they 9 out of 10 times come back and they're like, okay, I see what you mean.
Right.
So I assign people challenges, and I say, just replace for 1 week your coffee with a matcha and see how you feel. And it's incomparable.
So if somebody want to get some of your tea this podcast is listened by South Africans and other people outside. So how do they get hold of your tea?
So we have our shop on Long Street, we have a shop in Joburg, and there's a couple of online stores that sell our tea, like Faithful to Nature, and we are actually busy in the process of doing our own online store. Right. So that's under development right now, so people will be able to buy directly from us soon. And if you're in Korea, we'll be exporting there soon, and if you're in Japan, we'll be exporting there, and then we actually have a couple of places in Amsterdam that have our tea there. But so soon we'll be able to get it online. Otherwise, we've just launched with Dischem, and we're in a lot of independent, health stores around the country, 1 or 2 spas. So our distribution base is growing, and in a lot of restaurants we can actually go and drink the tea. Yeah,
and you have your own restaurant on Long Street, a
tea
shop.
Our tea bar, so we call it a tea bar and ceremony room. So the tea bar has the retail aspect to it, but you can come in and you can get all kinds of takeaway teas there, as well as some little treats, some healthy vegan options. And then we've got a little courtyard where people can sit under a grapevine. It's all very like a little beautiful escape from the chaos of town. And then we've got the ceremony room where people can actually sit and delve into the practice of tea if they want. Have a little ceremony. We do little ceremonies or tea tastings, tea and food pairings there. And then they can buy all the tea. We have all the paraphernalia, different pots, infusers.
Right.
And then our shop in Joburg is in 44 Stanley. And there we share a shop with the amazing jewelry brand Pachulik. So she's also a very strong woman who her ancient wisdom is the art of jewelry,
Right.
and mine is the art of tea. And
Yes.
so we both do our own ancient wisdoms for a modern world in our own way.
Great,
So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Then what would you like to share to other female entrepreneurs, first of all? Maybe not female. I shouldn't be sexist here.
That's
Generally,
okay.
to all entrepreneurs.
To entrepreneurs, well, find something that you're passionate about. I mean, it doesn't have to be the end. Actually, wait, let me take that back. Find something that you feel you have a purpose with. Because anyone can be passionate about anything. It doesn't mean that you want to turn that passion into a business. You know, I'm passionate about surfing, but I'm not going to be a pro surfer.
Yeah.
That's not possible. So, well, anything's possible, but you know what I mean. So I think people should find something that they find it in alignment with in terms of their purpose. Because when you can find something that you have a purpose with, you will fight for that tooth and nail.
Yes.
In a way that it will keep you motivated, and when the times are really, really tough, you'll be able to come back to that again and again and again and realize that this is part purpose, part passion, because the times there's more tough ones than there are good ones.
Yeah.
You know, it is, maybe we redefine that, and it depends on your business, but that definitely keeps you going through the really dark days.
Yeah.
To have a purpose. It's just like with your child, you know, you'll fight for your child in any way that you do. So having a purpose has helped me fight through the dark times. And goodness, where to even start? Perseverance.
Yeah.
Perseverance, and no matter what, everything's always going to be okay.
Right.
It's always going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's our mantra.
Okay.
You know, at the end of the day, we're not like, some of us are not saving lives. You know, so we don't have people on operating tables and things like that. And for sure, it's your own livelihood and the livelihood of other people. You know, I'm responsible for other people's livelihoods, and that's a very stressful and scary thing, but it also motivates me.
Yeah.
And diligence is good, and balance is really important. That's where I went wrong. I mean, I had to learn the hard way by getting adrenal fatigue and getting really sick, stomach ulcer and all sorts of things, but you have to have a balance. So, you know, I would think that I was being efficient by working until 2 to 4 in the morning, and I did this consistently for 4 years until I burned out. I didn't take weekends, and I didn't do these things. And actually, you know, if I get to bed between like 9 and 10 and I'm up by 5:30, I'm far more productive in my day, and I actually get more done than if I'm working until 2, 4 in the morning, and my stress levels are, you know, you're more productive. And exercise is important, and eating healthy is important, and sleep is the most important.
Yeah.
Sleep.
So I'm on the like 4 to whatever, you know, working.
Yeah.
Sleep 5 to 6 hours, and I'm still finding it hard to find balance, because you know, it's hard to go to bed when you know you have these 10 things undone, and you feel like if you don't do them now, you know, something's gonna go wrong. Or something like that. I don't know, like, how do you convince yourself to say it's okay to step away and, like, you know, take some time off?
I find scheduling on like a monthly and then breaking it down into weekly and a daily basis makes things more achievable. Right. So if you schedule all the things you have to do within a week's basis, if you only get 3 out of 5 done on the Tuesday, you know, you still can fit that into the Wednesday. Yeah. So that helps you kind of strategize, and you can go, you know what, well then let me rather work a day on Saturday, but get my good sleep.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So that you are, you know, even if you give yourself a day off, it's better than not taking any days off, because at the end of the day, you have to give. If you're putting out, you have to give back in. Right. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you have to work until 4 in the morning, and like, for me, I had to break the habit because I loved working between 12 and 4.
Yeah, me too. I enjoy working late.
Yeah,
you know,
it's nice because you get, you know, you get a lot done because nobody's bothering you.
Yes.
And it's quiet, and your mind can think. And but at the same time, you're super tired, and like, you know, when you're young, you can kind of do it, but it does catch up with you eventually.
All right.
So that's why it's like you want to maybe do that for longer. So you have to balance yourself. It's the same with, like, you know, how good are our older years going to be if we live with KFC and drink lots of alcohol? You know, you're going to destroy your organs. So it's the same with, if you want to be fit, you have to train. So that's where the balance is important. So I would say just like maybe incrementally starting a little bit, like compromise with yourself. So go, if I don't do this here, I'm going to do this here. Right. But understand what the greater picture is, and break it down into like week and month processes, so that you know that if you don't get it done here,
Yeah.
you can still get it done there. That is to give yourself permission, and also just see what happens one day.
Yeah.
Like rebel and see what happens if you don't.
Yes.
Do something for a day. And just see what happens.
Right.
Does the world come crumbling down? How did you feel after that? Like maybe you just plugged into series for a bit. I mean, I say that tentatively because a lot of people take that as an excuse, and then they go, okay, you know, I've worked so hard for 2 days and now I'm just going to binge watch series for like 5 days.
Yes.
Again, there has to be a balance.
Yeah. So, and do you have books or podcasts or whatever you use you can recommend to other people, or practices that helps you, like?
Yeah, your best practice is going to be drinking tea.
Right.
Really and truly, because tea takes you away for just, even if it's just 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And drinking good tea allows you to, like, now you have to be mindful of how long you're steeping the tea for. You're present in that moment to just give yourself that break. It is amazing what can happen in your mind if you step away from what you're doing for 5 minutes and find solutions, because there's that incredible process of like the subconscious thing that happens, you know. So sometimes there's an idea or there's something I need to work on. Sit down with some tea, let it process in my mind, and I'll come back to that like a few days later because my subconscious is now working on it. But yeah, I start my day with tea because I like to start my day knowing what I'm doing. I don't, you know, that's what the problem I had with coffee is, like getting up, you're still groggy, you're half asleep, you have a coffee, and now you're like boom into adrenaline mode, you know, and before you know it, your days run away with you. When I do it with my tea, I can actually sit and I can connect with what I'm doing. I can visualize everything that I'm doing. I can plot and I can see everything that I have to do in that day. And of course, life comes and throws things in you, but it gives me serenity, and serenity allows you to adapt and respond better to what life throws you. That's why the Japanese drank tea, because that's why they were such formidable warriors.
Yes.
Because they believed that, well, they didn't fear death because they could attain serenity through their practices.
Yeah.
And we have our own challenges in life, our own deaths. You know, so having that serenity that tea can bring can allow you that. So yeah, that I would suggest as a practice. And in terms of books, oh my goodness, because my books are like totally, I read a lot of philosophy.
Right.
Because that helps me understand the nature of my reality and my existence, so I don't take things too seriously. And also because it interests me. I've learned not to read business books at night. So I do a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because then I you know, get it done in traffic time, and it also allows me to not get so frustrated driving in traffic.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm actually utilizing my time positively. But yeah, I've been delving into a lot of stuff, I guess in terms of understanding something called Sacred Economics.
Sacred Economics.
Yeah, it's really good. I can't remember who it's by. Yeah.
All right.
But it's sort of understanding the nature of money based on where it originates from.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm trying to re-establish my relationship with money.
What is it like now? And what was it like before?
I think there's a lot of we're hijacked by it. We have a lot of fear by it. You know, there's a thing of, you know, well, whatever it is, it's either, there's always an imbalance when it comes to money. Either you've got too much and you fear losing it, or you've got too little and you fear never having enough.
Yes.
You know, and I want to find a healthy balance where I understand what it is. So whatever conditions I have about like hating money because I see how it like destroys people, or how it makes other people suffer for those who don't have it, or whatever it is understanding that like essentially there's a game and you can have a healthy game. How do you find the health with money?
Right.
You know, that you can utilize it in a way that is good. So I'm trying to understand what my conditions are with it, that are based on how society has made us conditioned to it. Fear, you know, the middle class thing of like fear being poor, and you know, also, so again, like with my business, I can redefine how it is that I'm interacting with the world, and maybe contribute to a better kind of economy. Because also if I look at the economy, I go like, none of this makes sense. We know now, we've seen all of the things of how like this is just a weird game, and who do we own $3 trillion to, and like, you know, stocks and all of that kind of stuff. It's nonsense. We know that it's people riding off of other people's debt, and it's really a farce. Okay, so then what is this idea of this exchange? Because essentially it's an exchange and things have value. So I'm trying to understand that, so that within myself, you know, in the beginning of my business, I struggled to actually charge people money. Like I had this issue with being able to charge. I just wanted everyone to drink the tea. And I felt bad asking for money. You know, I think because I come from this industry where all I saw was money being spent and taking advantage, I panicked and I wanted to go in the other way. I wanted to be free of it, and I was like a hippie in my head and all these things. But we still needed to live. But why can't there be a healthy way? Just like we can have energy without like completely raping the earth.
Yes.
You know, so there has to be a balance. So this is essentially what my exploration is now, and the business also teaches me to have to understand that, because you know, as soon as there's like a bad cash flow month, you freak out,
right?
And you want to, you know, bad cash flow means that you panic and you want to hold on to it, but actually there has to be a flow the whole time. So I'm learning also to flow with money, in that kind of thing, and you know, I just treat it like a friend, whatever it is, because then I can benefit other people, and essentially I understand how I can benefit people.
Right.
So, yeah. And other books, I don't know. I wouldn't even know where to start, because I just read whatever like comes my way, and whatever task. Like now, I'm trying to understand content, so I'm delving down the content world, and whatever someone suggests to me, I do that. But yeah.
So for the people listening, I'll put the link in the description. Do you mind sending me like the Amazon link?
Yeah,
for
sure.
The audiobook?
Absolutely.
Right. And finally, what has been your darkest moment? Last question.
My darkest moment. Oh my gosh. Which one?
Infinite, eh? An infinite number.
There's an infinite number of dark moments, yeah, and that's again where it's like this business is an incredible teacher. It shows me the darknesses in myself, and if I want to continue, you know, every time I'm faced with this new challenge, I immediately look and see how it's some kind of reflection of something within myself.
Right.
And if I want to get over that within the business, I have to get over that within myself. So it's always that choice of going, do you want to evolve? Do you want to get past this one here where there's this challenge? Because it means you have to look into yourself. So I'm constantly delving into aspects of myself that I don't necessarily like in order to evolve.
Right.
Does that make sense? So I think the worst was probably when I realized that I was still holding the tendencies of the film industry in terms of how I would talk to people.
Yeah.
When I became aware of that, it was very heartbreaking for me to realize that I still had this thing, and I was trying to be this business savvy woman, and you know, I was all hardcore. I was like, I'm selling tea. You know? I'm gonna be hardcore and horrible, you know. And I've had moments where sometimes that thing comes back because it's a learned habitual tendency, you know.
Right.
And the only way you can rewire those networks is to practice again and again until you break them and build new ones.
Right.
So I think I always just want to be like compassionate with people and kind, and when I'm not, that breaks my heart. I guess that would be my dark moments when the film industry in me comes out.
The industry strikes back.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thanks for your time.
Cool,
I really appreciate
it. Was a pleasure. Thank you.
Is there anything you would like to say?
Drink tea.
Right.
Drink more tea. I can't state it enough. Don't drink dust.
Right. And that marks the end of my conversation with Jess. I hope you found it helpful. It does make you a rare animal to be able to actually concentrate and listen to a podcast that's an hour long. It does mean that you're actually curious and you value learning, as I do. So it's definitely a good thing. So to build a community of such people like ourselves, all you can do is subscribe to the podcast so that you can get many of these. By doing that, also, you actually help this podcast to grow and reach as many people as you can. So you can do that by subscribing through the website, greyjabesi.com, or on iTunes, which is very important. You can go there, find the Grey F podcast, and write a review and leave a 5-star. It really helps a lot. And with that, you can also email me through the website. Let me know what kind of subjects you would want to hear and that we can learn a lot from. And with that, I say thanks and see you on the next episode next week. Thank you.